Hello and welcome to math. We are going to go over the one-step equations review together, and I wanted to just have this video for you, and then we're going to ask you questions along the way. So make sure that you're paying attention, make sure you're writing things down, and that you understand what's going on. So a few reminders at the top. Speed is the same thing as velocity, basically. Initial is beginning, like your initials are the beginning of your name. Also, one of the things you'll need to know is capital and lowercase letters mean different things. Also, the acceleration of gravity on Earth is 9.8 meters per second squared. Don't worry about the units. Basically, G is 9.8. And for this review, we're going to use our mass as 5. So our first question says kinetic energy when going downward on a snowboard half pipe. So hopefully you watched the snowboarding video, and we are going to talk about our energy of motion on that snowboard half pipe. And our equation, our formula is K equals 1/2 mv squared. So K is kinetic energy, m is your mass, which is 5, and v squared, or v, is 17. Paper and pencil, and then go ahead and take some notes. So you want to go ahead and start by writing a formula, and then down here I went ahead and wrote it again. And your mass is 5, so I'm going to fill that in. If you fall behind, remember you can pause this video at any time. And then V is 17. So I'm going to put a 17 here, and that is squared, so I'm going to put my exponent. So what does 17 squared stand for? It stands for 17 times 17. So, lucky you get to use a calculator now. So on your calculator, pause your video and do 17 times 17. So the answer to that is 289. I'm trying to write with my mouse here, it's not great. So now we have 1/2 times 5 times 289. And what you want to do there is turn 1/2 into a decimal, then multiply by 5, then multiply by 289, and go ahead and put that answer into the Ed puzzle. All right, great. So that was question number 1. Next is number 2. So the kinetic energy is the energy of motion. Potential energy is the stored energy. So when we're high, we always have the potential to fall. And so that formula is P equals mass times gravity times height. So let's go ahead and fill that in. Make sure you're writing this down on your paper. So for this activity, our mass is 5, nice easy number there. And then our gravity is 9.8, and that's just everywhere on Earth, that's what it is. And then in our problem, it tells us that our height is 7 meters. So we're going to have 5 times 9.8 times 7. So you can take your handy dandy calculator and go ahead and do 5 times 9.8 times 7 and put the answer into our Ed puzzle. So now that you've finished number 2 and put the answer in, go ahead and take a look at number 3. It says your momentum keeps you going even as you rise against gravity. Momentum is the lowercase p. Remember, potential energy was uppercase p. Momentum is lowercase p, and it's mass times velocity. So I want you to think about momentum is lowercase p. Think about what letter mass is, and what letter velocity is. And go ahead on Ed puzzle and enter in the formula. So now that you have told Ed puzzle the formula, it is momentum equals mass times velocity. And keep in mind this is a lowercase p, and it even kind of looks a little bit funky. It doesn't really have a stick up here. So now your mass is 5 and your velocity is 17. So go ahead and put those here, multiply them in your calculator, and then enter the answer in Edpuzzle. All right, so now just like any old test that you take, although we're not taking a test on this, this is just the review, and I'm just going to make sure you did it in Edpuzzle and take a look at your answers. So just like anything that I make, it's going to get easy to hard. So we're getting harder now. Be patient with yourself. So when you take off at the beginning of your snowboarding half pipe, your initial velocity is 0. If you must reach a final velocity of 45 meters per second in 9 seconds, so you have 9 seconds to reach 45 meters per second, what must your acceleration be to achieve this? So, big heavy question here. Your final velocity is v sub f, and it depends on your beginning speed, or velocity, v sub I, the amount of acceleration, which is a, and the time, which is t, that you are accelerating. Basically, that's just a fancy way of saying this formula. So it's v sub f minus v sub I equals a times t. And we're going to insert our numbers and solve for a. So we're going to walk through that one step at a time. So think about v sub f. That is our final velocity. What is our final velocity? Then we're going to subtract it, and we have initial velocity. Make sure you read the question carefully, starting right here at the beginning. What is our initial velocity? Then A is what we're solving for, so we're just going to leave it as A. If you want a happy face, or a star, or an X, if you feel more comfortable with that, that's just fine. And then T, oh hey, gets us to the problem right here. Nice and easy. T is 9. So now that we've got this written down, we're going to take a look and combine these like terms over here. So when we combine 45 minus 0, of course it's just 45, so that makes this super easy. Now we have 45 equals a times 9, and you have a one-step equation. You're trying to find a, and you're multiplying. So we're going to circle our a, since that was what we're trying to find, and we need to get a in a room all by itself, which is a little close to home right now, right? So we all thought we wanted to be by ourselves. So it's being multiplied. What are you going to do to get a by itself if it's multiplied by 9? So we're going to divide both sides by 9. Make sure you're writing this down. I'm about to leave you to do the answer. Then we're going to go ahead and cross these out because 9 divided by 9 is 1. And 1 times a just leaves us with a, all by itself. So remember that this looks like a fraction, but it's actually a division problem. So take your calculator, or you might know this one in your head, nice and easy. 45 divided by 9, and put the answer in Edpuzzle. So remember, I wrote this as easy to hard. And so this is kind of your level 7-8 question. So if I lose you at this point, it's no big deal. You don't have to do this, okay? If you want to, on the Edpuzzle, you can just put zeros for all the rest of your answer, and I'll know that you just chose not to do this question. So Meridian is not going to take really strict grades during these next couple of months. We just want you to learn as much as you can without stressing you out. So if you want to do this and you're up for the challenge, awesome. If you're not, just put zeros for all the answers. Okay? So here is our level 7-8 question. It's kind of tricky. When doing tricks on the half pipe, you fly in a parabolic shape. And you may not know what that is, but you're going to graph it if you choose to do this problem. And it's going to be represented by the equation y equals negative 3x squared plus 30x plus 5. So I've got this mega XY chart over here, and I'm going to help you through the first couple of them. And then you can do the rest on Edpuzzle. And there's some graph paper at the bottom. If you can print it, if you can't print it, I don't have a printer either, and that's okay. You can graph it on your own paper. I'm just going to ask you what the shape looks like. I'm not going to ask anything super specific, so if you don't have graph paper, it doesn't have to be really exact. So I've gone ahead and started over here. So y equals negative 3x squared plus 30x plus 5. And I'm writing with my mouse, so it looks like a kindergartner. That's okay. And y equals negative 3. So the first thing we're going to put in for x is negative 1. So every time there's an x, I'm going to put a negative 1. And I'm going to choose to put this in a parenthesis just so it's a little bit easier to understand in a second. So negative 1 squared plus 30 times negative 1 again, because there's another x, plus 5. Following along with me and you're up for the challenge of this problem, then go ahead and make sure you're writing this down. And negative 1 squared is negative 1 times negative 1. And that's going to be a positive 1. So I'm just going to write that right here. Because then we're going to take these and put them together. What's negative 3 times positive 1? A negative times a positive is a... So this is going to be negative 3. Then we have this term. It's 30 times negative 1. And that's going to be negative 30. Then you're going to carry down the plus 5. Now remember, negatives and subtraction are the same thing. So on your calculator, it may be negative, it may be subtraction. You're going to have to kind of fiddle with it a little bit. Negative 3 minus 30 plus 5. Figure that out and put it in here for y. So next, we're going to do 0. And so that's another tricky one. I'll help you through that. Y equals... And go ahead and rewrite this with 0. We have y equals negative 3 times 0 squared plus 30 times 0 plus 5. Remember to use your PEMDAS, exponents, then multiply, and at the very end we'll add. So 0 squared is just 0 times 0, which is 0. So what is negative 3 times 0? Then we have 30 times 0. Then we just carry down that plus 5. Super easy. Go ahead and fill that in your XY chart for 0. Next, we're going to do 1. So next, we're going to put positive 1 in here. So we have our regular equation, and then I put 1 in here, so y equals negative 3 times 1 squared plus 30 times 1 plus 5. And so what's 1 squared? And then multiply that by negative 3 and write your answer. Plus 30 times 1, write your answer. Plus 5, you just carry it down and write plus 5. Add those together and put it in your XY charts. Then you're going to want to do the same thing with all of the rest of them. So you're going to do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and graph those points. So keep in mind, your negative 1 through 11 goes down here. And then the numbers, the answers that you found, go on your y-axis. Graph that and tell me what shape. If it goes into the negatives, it's not a big deal. We'll just see what we get, and I'll ask you the general shape. Have a great day. Remember, at any point, if you decide not to do this, you can always answer 0.